Hello, I'm Mark Dolinski. I'm the Director of Business Services for the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And today we're celebrating Manufacturing Month, which is in October. Actually, Manufacturing Day is the first Friday of October, October 7th. And we have here with us today David Taylor, the President of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Welcome.
Thanks very much for having me.
David, can you tell us some of the work that you've been doing that can really help spur the manufacturers within Pennsylvania?
Well, sure. And just to give people a baseline, manufacturing is the engine that drives Pennsylvania's economy. We're talking about $80 billion worth of value added every year. We're talking about over 500,000 jobs on the plant floor, and that those jobs sustain millions of additional Pennsylvania jobs through supply chains, distribution networks, through industrial vendors. So manufacturing adds the most value, has the strongest multiplier effect on job creation, and so that's why it's so important to our well-being. In Pennsylvania right now, I would say that our greatest opportunity is energy. That no matter what it is that you're making, that manufacturers are taking raw materials or component parts, going through a multi-stage process to yield a finished good. In doing so, inevitably, they consume a lot of energy. And so the natural gas revolution that has emerged through the Marcellus Shale drilling offers an incredible opportunity to make Pennsylvania a more competitive place to do business.
So, David, is that just the energy from the natural gas, or are there other uses that we can leverage?
Well, yes, there certainly are. So you think of natural gas, which is methane, as a fuel source, which of course it is, but also methane can be used as a manufacturing input. And in the Marcellus Shale, it comes out of the ground differently depending on where you are in the shale play. On the northern tier, Bradford and Tioga County, Potter County, that it comes out of the ground pure methane. And so you've seen a lot of activity there because no processing or refinement is necessary for it to be used as a fuel. The further west you go in the Marcellus play, the more the methane comes out of the ground with other products, butane, propane, ethane, and natural gasoline. Those chemicals are manufacturing feedstocks. Those are things that we can make stuff out of, which again is an incredibly exciting opportunity for manufacturers because we can shorten supply chains, reduce costs, and in that way make Pennsylvania a more competitive place to do business.
So David, does it take a special kind of plant in order to convert this to a feedstock?
Absolutely, yes. And that's why we're so excited about the news by Royal Dutch Shell that they are going to invest $4 billion in a petrochemical facility in Beaver County. And that plant is known as a cracker. That plant is going to take the ethane, crack a hydrogen molecule off of it, and turn it into ethylene. And depending on how that ethylene is then further processed, it's the precursor of every kind of paint, glaze, solvent, adhesive, coating, plastic, styrofoam, and rubber that goes into every kind of consumer good that you and I purchase and handle and use every day. It's also an input for fertilizer, so there are agricultural implications. It's an input for pharmaceuticals, so there are healthcare implications. This is a tremendously transformative thing because today there are 29 of these kinds of facilities in the United States. 26 of them are on the Gulf of Mexico. There is nothing like this in the entire northeastern United States, which was why it was so important that the original siting decision between Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania was decided in our favor. So that's going to be 10,000 construction jobs just to erect the thing. But again, once it is up and running, that is going to be an engine of industrial production that is going to feed many other manufacturing industries in the Commonwealth.
And that's something that you really don't always think about, or all the jobs that can really come from this petrochemical. So how is the infrastructure? Do we have that in place to fully utilize the natural resources that we have?
We do not, and that's one of our biggest challenges right now, that the legacy infrastructure that's in place really goes back to the energy economy from a decade or more ago, before the Marcellus was discovered and developed, that the infrastructure we have really points up from the Gulf of Mexico to Pennsylvania. And so what we really need is to have new intra-state infrastructure to go from western Pennsylvania to southeastern PA, to go from northeastern PA to southeastern PA, and that there are several major projects that are underway right now that are that PMA is monitoring closely, doing everything that we can to support the Sunoco Mariner East 1 and 2, the Atlantic Sunrise project, the Penn East pipeline. All of these things are tremendously important for Pennsylvania's industrial future.
Right. It sounds like very transformative in nature, because we'll have the energy and we'll also have jobs that typically are down at the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes, exactly. And that's why optimizing conditions for growth in Harrisburg is so important, because the path of least resistance would be to take those valuable Marcellus shale elements, the natural gas and the byproducts, and put them in one of those old pipelines and send it down to the Gulf. And then the manufacturing, the value added, would occur where? In Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi. And again, we wish our neighbors well, but this is a Pennsylvania resource, and it makes sense to capitalize on that here.
And manufacturing jobs, they're some of the highest paid and highly skilled. And
that's exactly right. Like I was saying, that because the manufacturing sector adds the most value, the jobs in that field are very well paying, with wages and benefits well above average. And so, because of the tremendous competitive pressures on the manufacturing sector, between the states, international competition, and all the things that unfortunately the lawmakers, the politicians put in place to make it harder and harder to create jobs, those jobs are more precious, they're more rare, but they're also more valuable.
Right.
And so this is why manufacturing, which is alive and well, it's worth fighting for.
And how can you see some of these potential possibilities with the cracker plant helping manufacturing in Berks County?
Well, I mean, if we're able to build this new infrastructure to deliver the power and the feedstocks, that this is going to be transformative for businesses all across Pennsylvania. And again, the dynamic of new manufacturing up and running, supply chains, distribution networks, it's going to reach out in all directions. It's not as though this growth or benefit is going to be contained just in the drilling areas. That for every logistics company, for trucking, for warehousing, for packaging in particular, for vendors of industrial services, all of those things are going to be opened up as more companies, more manufacturers have access to these resources.
So it's just going to build upon itself. As the petrochemical industry grows, we'll have more manufacturing jobs, and that will help support and create the tax base.
Yes. And the thing is that keep in mind that every layer, every step of refining of those natural gas byproducts, every step of that is manufacturing and is adding value, and so this is the thing again that I don't think a lot of our elected officials really appreciate. If we do this right, the potential from petrochemical manufacturing, the benefit will be bigger than what we have seen from the drilling activity, which of course itself is enormous. But of course, we'll never miss what we didn't have. And so that's why it's really important right here, right now, that we commit to deploying this new infrastructure, connecting Pennsylvania energy production with Pennsylvania industrial and commercial and residential consumers.
I think that's something interesting you said. Even though we are focusing on manufacturing, ultimately it's going to help the residents and the consumers.
Absolutely, yes. And again, the manufacturing is if it's not the largest contributor, it's one of the largest contributors to Pennsylvania's overall economy at about 12% of gross state product. And again, also that manufacturers are the number one consumers of information technology and the number one investors in research and development. And so that brain function of R&D also adds tremendous value, synergy with our institutions of higher learning, and one of the challenges that we have as an industry is helping people to understand the way that modern manufacturing is really different from the way people think of it. People hear manufacturing and they think, of a blast furnace at a steel mill in the 1940s. And of course, in fact, the high-tech jobs of the future are manufacturing jobs, and that you see things in biotechnology and the life sciences. You see, advanced manufacturing in aircraft, and I swear, in the course of my work, I get to tour a lot of facilities and walk on a lot of plant floors, and the ways that these manufacturing employers continue to invest in technology and R&D and to innovate, it's really astonishing that this is the invisible infrastructure that undergirds our very high and ever rising quality of life. But people don't think about it. It's like, well, that's just some sort of big pole building on the edge of town. I don't know what they do there. Right. Well, in fact, things that happen there that are borderline miraculous, and we need to make sure that we are that we as a Commonwealth have an environment where that kind of investment and innovation and production can continue to grow. We don't want government controlling the economy. Right. We don't want the government to pick winners and losers. We're not looking for corporate welfare. We're talking about attacking the baseline costs of creating and keeping jobs here in Pennsylvania, so that it's the smarter business decision to invest and hire and expand here than in Indiana or North Carolina or somewhere else.
And that's something we all want to see. Well, David, thank you so much. It's been very illuminating, and all the great work that you do at the PMA. It's something that a lot of people, as you said, probably don't realize what manufacturing means to Pennsylvania.
Well, and let me say also, PMA is the Pennsylvania partner of the National Association of Manufacturers, and in turn, we work closely with our allies like the Greater Reading Chamber, which of course is the successor organization to the Berks County Manufacturers Association. We work with you folks and other regional and local manufacturing groups across the Commonwealth, and this is the important thing, that that we're good teammates and that we stick together. So thank you for everything that you folks do.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we want to thank you for joining us today.
My great pleasure.
Great.